Hello and welcome back to the What the Falk podcast in association with Viper Goalkeeping. The Champions League is over. Most importantly, League One is over. The Scottish Premiership is done. Every league under the sun, I think, at the time of recording, is pretty much done. However, the football does not stop because if COVID gave us one thing, it's the fact that we've got European Championships to look forward to when they should have already been done and dusted. And of course, we're not going to go anywhere this summer. We're going to be keeping you informed throughout the tournament with previews for England games, Scotland games. But we're going to be looking at the tournament in full, making some predictions today, looking at who's going to win what group, who we should be looking out for, and going forth with that. As I've already mentioned, Scott's with us. Scott, how are you doing now? You all right?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, really excited for the tournament. Not going to deny it. I'm buzzing for a tournament. It feels like it's been longer because it has been, but like much longer than it actually has been since a major tournament.
So, do you feel like it's been since maybe 1998 since you last qualified for a major tournament or round about that?
As an Englishman, not so much. Not so much. Got Ian. Ian, obviously Scottish tones, but I believe you're following a bit of both. You're a bit like me this tournament. England first, Scotland second. But how are you doing, mate? Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm sound, mate. Yeah, good. Yeah.
Did I get that analysis right? England first, Scotland second?
Absolutely, yeah. Uh-huh.
Good. Just so the listeners know who the scum in the room is, Scott.
Free scum.
Nah. We're not like that. And also Connor. Connor, you've joined us. You've been with us quite a bit recently, which is nice. How are you doing, mate? You all right?
I'm doing really well, yeah. Really, really well. Just looking forward to watching more football and watching a team that's not particularly shit.
Famous last words, mate. That's on a recorded podcast now. 3 weeks time. How did we not beat Croatia? How's little man? Who's he following? Who's Max following?
He's doing really well, and honestly, I can't even begin to put in the words like how happy I am to have him home. It's just unreal. Like I just had him down the seafront today, just down the park, and he's absolutely thriving. Like just great. Just normal little things that you miss, just to like take them to the park and just going for a little walk, and it's just so nice.
He's timed it well, hasn't he? Coming out for the Euros.
He has. I just need more time off now.
Yeah, I reckon he's literally just gone right, getting out of this hospital for the Euros, and he's timed it perfectly. Well done, Max. We'll get straight into it, of course. We're going to go group by group by group, and there's more groups than usual, I think. I actually should be looking at the format a little bit more, know a little bit more than I did maybe 6 months ago because the world's been turned upside down. But obviously there'll be third team qualifying. There'll be more groups, so it's pretty hectic. And we're recording this just round the corner from Hampden as well, so there's a bit of scenery for you if you want to picture where we are, well, where I am. We'll start with Group A, and I'm going to go in the order that I introduced everyone. So Group A, we've got Italy, Turkey, Switzerland, and Wales, and the opening game is going to be with Italy and Turkey on June the 11th. Not the most difficult of groups. I think Wales have done all right with that. Obviously, there's a standout team, Scott. But Group A, what's your assessment on it?
I was having a look yesterday, and when I was looking at Italy, and I don't watch like a lot of Italian football, so that there are some players in the squad who I don't know an awful lot about. But looking at the squad, it's, to me anyway, and others might disagree, but it's not like looking at Italy teams of 10, 15 years ago and you looked through it and it was like superstar. They're in with a chance of winning it. They might be in with a chance of winning it, but looking at the squad that they've got just now, I do think they probably will win the group, but I don't think it will be, quite as good as the Italy of old, shall we say. So I think Wales have probably got a chance of qualifying. Switzerland and Turkey, again, I would say they're probably quite comparable with Wales and how they've been as a tournament team over the last couple of tournaments. So I think Italy to win that group and Wales to come second.
I think when you look at the Italy team, it's funny. I think you used to obviously USA in '94 was probably prime for most of us, apart from Ian. Like Baggio is like probably the poster boy for the first World Cup that I really properly watched and understood, because Italia 90 I was far too young. Although I do remember it, I was too young to understand even what a corner was, so I can't exactly claim to be like idolizing Gaza in my prime, you know what I mean? It just didn't happen. So Baggio was probably the first one that I really watched and was like, that guy's like player of the tournament. And obviously had the iconic moment at the end, but you've had the Costa Curtas throughout the years, you've had the Buffons, you've had Pilos. There's so many players that Italy have been just iconic for years. And you look at the side now and it's like, there's players in there that you recognise, but they're not worldwide superstars like they used to be. And I'm sure there'll be people listening going, well, hang on a minute. I think personally, Channel 4's got a lot of answer for getting rid of Italian Anti because we'd know far more about it if they kept it going. But I think key player for at least probably Verratti. Does anyone disagree with me on that? Verratti's probably the standout for me at the minute.
I would say so. He's just, yeah, it's something about him. He's just, he's like candy. He's small and agile, just hard to get off the ball. Once the ball's on his foot, you can't get it off him. He's probably, I would even go as far and say he's the best player that PSG have.
Yeah,
and that's putting it quite brutal because they've got Neymar and they've got Mbappe, but I think just everything goes through him. From what I've seen at PSG in the Champions League.
Thing is with PSG as well, and Italy, I think there's always a young player that comes out in a tournament, and sort of out of nowhere, I didn't realise how much Moise Kean had kind of blossomed since his Everton days. Like he could be potentially one of the superstars that we do go, well, hang on a minute, Italy didn't have that many superstars, but there's that guy. But you kind of forget about him because he had, I wouldn't say a disastrous Everton career, but it didn't really work out at Everton, did it? Italy, Turkey, Switzerland, Wales. Scots took Italy and Wales. Where would you go with this?
I've got Italy to finish first, and I'm going with Turkey to finish second, because there's always seems to be a big name that goes out, and in that group, I think I would expect Switzerland or Wales to go through, but I think Turkey.
Well, Turkey's got Soyuncu, don't they? He's kind of like the standout player probably from the names I've looked at. And again, Turkey are a funny one because a lot of the time you find out about the players after a tournament. Like I remember Hakan Şükür like years ago was like really standout, but I hadn't really heard of him beforehand. But they've got a few players in that squad that I do recognise, and Soyuncu's kind of the standout. But just to throw a question at you here, you've gone for Turkey. A few years ago, Wales made 5 years ago, Wales made the semis, obviously, and it was a tournament where they lost to England. But I think, and there's no offence to the rest of the team at all, but it was definitely spearheaded at the least by Gareth Bale. Mm-hmm. Bale's still a fantastic player, still absolutely world class. But is he as important to the Welsh team as he would have been in the last Euros, do you think?
I wouldn't say as important as he was in the last Euros when Coleman was in charge. But if you've got a player like that, he will drag the other players to that level, well, not to that level, but he makes other players around him look better. Like we're seeing this with Cristiano Ronaldo when Portugal won the Euros the last time round. So I don't think they're going to go as far. Well, I've got them not even get out the group stages, but if they're going to stand any chance of going far, it's going to have to come through Gareth Bale.
They're quite comparable to Scotland in a sense, Wales. They've got those players where you're just like Ramsey's obviously a great player. I think Ampadu's a great player as well. I know he hasn't had the best of seasons, but I think he's a very good player. And obviously Gareth Bale is the absolute standout. But then you've got like very average championship centre forwards, championship centre backs and right backs. And I think they're going to go with probably Wayne Hennessy in goal or possibly even Danny Ward, who's barely played for the rest of the season. So it does kind of determine their success, doesn't it, on how Gareth Bale really does. And Coleman did do really well, which is probably a sore point for the Sunderland fans listening. But he did really well to kind of be a married man with 6 kids, pretty much. But he did well to have like that 5 at the back and that camaraderie that he had that we all thought he was actually going to bring to Sunderland, but then he had that little bit of quality in Gareth Bale that could just turn a game. I think Wales will qualify. I think they'll nick it, but I think it would be wrong to underestimate Switzerland with Shaqiri for obvious reasons. They've got a few decent players in there, and I think Shaqiri's probably equally as important to Switzerland as Bale is to Wales. But Ian, I'll come to you last but not least. I think we've all kind of universally agreed that Italy are not the favourites they may used to be, but they're considerably the strongest team in the division in the group. Where you going? Are you going to surprise us and go elsewhere with Italy, or do you think that's probably where it's going to land? They're going to finish first.
No, I can't really see they sort of past them. You know, it's funny you touched on the players that you think will they sort of stand out. Their Italian, you know, teams to me have always been about how they're solid.
Yeah.
They are. So for me, actually, the standout, their sort of player and actually someone who's their future is going to be spoken about a lot over the summer is the Donnarumma.
Yeah, of course. He's out of contract, isn't he? Of course.
Yeah, so yeah, I think he could actually there potentially be the star. But you know, you kind of summed it up really well. There isn't a lot of names in that side that you know stand out.
It feels like weird saying that it doesn't, because obviously it's flooded with players that we know. But I suppose the best way to explain what we're saying, I suppose, is when you look through it, it's not the Baggios, the Pirlos, the Buffons, the Costa Curtas, the Nestas, and I don't know how much, like I say, Channel 4 has got to do with us not knowing the players as much as we used to, but it just doesn't feel like a team years ago that had this brilliant spine. And I think it'll be there or thereabouts, if I'm completely honest, because I think they're still probably in the top 5 or 6 in the tournament, but in the past where you go, oh, well, Italy are a good side. Look, they're going to get at least to the semis because they've got Del Piero, they've got Costa Curta, they've got Pirlo. All these players with like a massive amount of experience and a massive amount of talent. And it feels like kind of the new group coming through. And Donnarumma, I mean, obviously, it feels like he's been around a long while, but he started when he was 16. He can't be that much older than that now. I think he's early 20s, but at best. But I agree with you on that. But where you going second? Because I think it's kind of a toss of a coin, that, isn't it? Like, I've gone for Wales, Scott's gone for Wales, Connor's gone for Turkey, but you can't really discount Switzerland out of it, can you?
Well, it's funny you should sort of mention that, because I think out of the three their sort of teams, it comes down to your their sort of talisman. The Shaqiri would always sort of stand out, but he's not really played. He's not really done much.
That's true.
Club wise. Yeah. I can't really see past their sort of Wales. It's all about your game, their sort of changes, and Bale is still absolutely up there, and he's actually ended the season quite well. So
he has, to be fair, and I think with Bale as well, one big thing you could probably take from it, there's certain players that you watch and you go, God, he loves playing for his country. Gaza was one, and Gaza obviously did loads of good in Italia 90, and we've seen other players come through and drag their players through tournaments. Sometimes it's like the spearhead, Ronaldo being the main one. He was even coaching on the sidelines in the final when he went off, and you have that spearhead. And I think Bale, I mean, obviously this is the famous flag, isn't it? Wales, Golf, Madrid. I think he genuinely thinks like that. He obviously hasn't enjoyed much playing time at Madrid over the past few years, and started rocky at Spurs, but then when Ryan Mason's took over, when Mourinho's gone, you've seen him come to the fore and link up well with, what is a really good Spurs forward line that's underachieving. And I think he cares more about Wales than anything. As, proud Welshmen do, proud Scotsmen do, proud Englishmen do. And I think when you've got that level of talent and that level of drive still to go, and it'll probably be one of his final tournaments, because you can't always guarantee Wales are going to qualify. So he's going to have that in his head that this might be my final chance, because he's into his 30s. You can't guarantee that Wales will qualify for every tournament, so he'll look at it as potentially one of his last times. So I think universally Connor's in the wrong, as we've noticed. Connor's wrong again. We're going to go with Italy and Wales to qualify. Fast forward, Switzerland fans going absolutely mental at this podcast. Group B, a bit tastier than Group A, if I'm honest with you. There's the obvious standout, like there has been with Group A, but then there's a weird mix of teams that have got really good standout players and solid squads. So Group B, Belgium, Denmark, Russia, Finland. Scott, I'll come back to you. We'll start with Belgium, because I think that's the obvious place to start. Surely Belgium wins this group.
I think this is a massive tournament for Belgium, generally, because
huge, isn't it? Yeah.
In my opinion, between Belgium and France, man for man across the 23, they both have the best squads overall, the depth of squad across the full squad. And Belgium, the last few years, I'm looking at their record in the Euros now from kind of 1964, and 2016, they got to the quarterfinals. But with a squad like that, I think Belgium should be looking to get further than that. I know they got a wee bit further than that in the World Cup a couple of years ago. But for this team, and although we say they've got a depth in the squad, they've also got quite an aging squad. So for this squad, I think it's a massive, massive tournament for them. I do think that they will win the group, without a doubt. I don't think, unless something goes seriously wrong, I think they'll walk that group.
I agree with what you're saying on Belgium. It's felt like for a while they've been like England's golden generation. Got a bit further. Obviously, they got third place in the World Cup, but I think people kind of expected them to probably beat France or do a bit better than that. Yeah. And I mean, that's no disrespect to France, because France are phenomenal and have a great tournament record, especially recently. But I mean, just looking through the squad there for Belgium, there's players that are like in their 30s or approaching their 30s. It's going to be like a new look side at the next World Cup, the next Euros. So potentially a lot of players' final chance to make sure that they get what's probably been expected of Belgium for a few years. I mean, you've got Courtois as your main goalkeeper. You've got Mignolet's backup, which is a Sunderland fan I think is great. Meunier, Vermaelen, Alderweireld, Vertonghen, Denayer, who's obviously done really well since he's left Sunderland. He's at Lyon now. Witsel, De Bruyne, Chadley, Carrasco, Tielemans, both the Hazards, Mertens, Lukaku, Benteke, Batshuayi, Doku, and Trossard. I mean, randomly, I don't know if anyone remembers this, and I doubt there'll be any Newcastle fans listening to this podcast based on previous shows, but Matt Sells, he was an absolute nightmare at Newcastle and was horrendous, I think, in the championship season and possibly actually just after got promoted. He's their third choice, but aside from Matt Sells and probably Boyata, who obviously is at Hertha Berlin, but I don't think he's in the same class as the rest of the players there. Connor, how good are Belgium, do you think? Do you think this is their time?
I've just had a look at the squad, sorry. But like you just said there, we've been expecting Belgium to just sort of blossom over the years, and they just haven't. I got to touch on what you've just said there about how they are aging now. They're getting to that age now where they haven't reached the expectations that everyone thought that they would.
And I think that's kind of testament to how good their side is, isn't it? Because there'll be people listening going, well, hang on, they've finished third place and so. But I think the quality that they've got, the expectation is that they actually at least won something, and I don't think they've made it to a final yet. So, and they got beat off Wales in the last Euros in the quarters. So there might be people listening saying, well, come on, they've done this to the highest rated and stuff like that, but they've actually not won anything with a squad like that. They should be pushing much further. So I agree with you on that 100%.
They should be. And I think there's always one team that surprises you, and Russia are never really that. The physical, they of course, are going to be physical. They drink vodka for breakfast. Sorry, any Russians that may be listening. But I actually have Russia to finish first with Belgium second, because I think Russia will beat Belgium once. Is that a bit controversial?
No, I forgot to take myself off mute, which is that is controversial. Yeah, but I'll take it. We're here for the controversy. It creates great engagement. So please, if you disagree with Connor, which I'm sure you do, please tell us why.
I do. I actually do have the squad list here, and I don't recognise one single player on it. Mind
for Russia,
a lot of to be fair, Denis Cheryshev from Valencia.
I think
and that's about it.
Squad,
that's about it, to be fair.
There used to be, I'm trying to remember which tournament it was now, but when they had Arshavin and Pavlyuchenko and all those sort of like types, they were really strong then. And it feels like Russia have kind of always qualified for tournaments, but never really gone anywhere. But obviously there was the last Euros, we played them first game as well. And I didn't really recognise too many at that point either. And they've gone on and not really done too much. I think for me, Belgium are the obvious standout, but I think it's probably hard luck past Denmark. But then Finland, the one thing I'll give Finland is they've got a striker there that can score goals in Teemu Pukki. And I know he's mainly scored them in the Championship. I know he scored like 11 last season in the Premier League, and I know he didn't do much of a job at Celtic when he was there, but Pukki is someone where if he gets a chance, he'll score, and I don't necessarily know, I literally don't know if Russia have that same kind of option. Denmark on the flip side have got Eriksen, Kasper Schmeichel's in goal. They've got a lot of good players, Denmark. So I think as much as I quite like Finland's spine with Pukki and Glenn Kamara, who obviously I've watched most of the season, is a terrific player, I think Denmark's probably got a bit too much. I can't look past Belgium for winning it. Like I can't even go anywhere close. For me, it's Belgium. But I think after Denmark, you've got Eriksen's in the side, who's tremendous. I think you've also got in there Højbjerg, of course, who's had a great season at Spurs, keeps things ticking over. Thomas Delaney, obviously he was at Dortmund, which is a very un-Danish name. Martin Braithwaite's there as well, which I know was quite hilarious that he signed for Barcelona, but he didn't actually do too bad. And you've got Poulsen from Leipzig, and of course Schmeichel, who is 34 now, by the way. Kasper Schmeichel's 34. Jesus. That appeared out of nowhere. Scott, I didn't actually ask, who were you taking as second place?
It's probably a toss-up between Russia and Denmark. I was having a look at the squads, and I was thinking it could be either one. I think I'm going to go for Denmark, purely just because, like you said, Graham, the players they've got, the experience, Schmeichel, Eriksen, Striker, Larsen, the amount of minutes they've got between them and stuff like that. And obviously they've got a couple of players that can stick the ball in the net. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was Russia, but I'm going to stick my neck out and go for Denmark.
Ian, I'll come on to you. I think most of us, apart from Connor, have universally gone with Belgium as probably the standout in that group, far and wide. And then Russia could be a surprise. Finland, I like. Denmark, I think, are probably the better of the three.
Yeah.
Are you agreeing with that?
Yeah. Belgium and Denmark, I really can't see past those two at all. Yeah.
Who's going to be questioning everyone? And I'll go with Scott, Connor, Ian, because we're keeping that order. But who's going to be the standout player in that group? I mean, there's always someone that, like we said before, we've talked about Bale in the last group, could be standout. Obviously, we've spoken about Verratti at Italy as well. For me, Bale's probably the best player in that group, which is probably a bit of a controversial statement. But Belgium, for me, and in that group in total, if we're talking the best player in that group, the one that I think will be the one to watch in the early stages, Kevin De Bruyne.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with that. And I would say, with him having Lukaku playing in front of him, you would imagine they would thrive.
I was thinking this the other day, and I'm probably coming to it a bit too early, but just to break up the conversation a little bit, Golden Boot is always hotly contested. There's always an English player, if we get a little bit further, that's there or thereabouts. But for me, I was given a suggestion this morning that Lukaku could be a top tip for Golden Boot, and I think it's difficult to disagree with that. Does anyone disagree with Lukaku potentially, or do you think it could be somebody else?
Without upsetting Scott, I'm going to say Harry Kane.
I think now that Ollie McBurney's out the squad, I think then maybe we could be looking at Kylian Mbappe. I think I was going between Belgium and France, as I said earlier. So name McBurney. If it's not John McGinn, I think it will be Kylian Mbappe.
Actually, can't believe he didn't go for Stephen O'Donnell. I'm not going to lie.
That's coming later.
So I think universally we're going Belgium, Denmark. Connor again with the random guess at Russia. You'll be in no Russia to forget that statement once they get knocked out. That was a good pun, that. Group C, again, it's standout team mixed with three teams I don't know enough about to decide who I think will get there, but we'll go first. Holland, Ukraine, Austria, North Macedonia. Holland's not had the best few years in terms of tournaments, and they haven't even qualified for, but Scott, that's got to be Holland surely to qualify from that.
I don't know. I mean, to qualify, definitely, I think in the top two, but win the group, I'm not sure, because I don't know an awful lot about Ukraine, but they always seem to be not too bad when it comes to tournament football. So yeah, I'm not sure. In North Macedonia, I don't know much about them. You know, they could turn it to be like a Greece a few years ago. I don't mean they're going to win it, but you
Which,
know,
to be honest, for
there's
this
always-
podcast is a bit weird because we know a lot about Macedonia, and I found out that Pandev is still in the squad. For those of you who don't listen to our regular show, we're all big fans of the country Macedonia, which we then found out was actually North Macedonia. So Pandev is obviously the David Hasselhoff of North Macedonia, and he's still in the squad. Pandev still in the squad.
Yeah, I mean, I think looking at it, I'm looking at their top scorers. You know, they've got Elmas on 4, Bardi on 2, Pandev on 2. When you look at Ukraine, they've got Yaremchuk on 4, Tishkinov on 3, and Malinovsky on 3. So when you're looking to compare like that, obviously it could be that they've not played as good caliber or whatever. But in comparison, you know, they could be a shock. I don't think so, but they play in claret number, so I'll plump for them and say hopefully they'll be a shock.
To be fair, in North Macedonia even, when England's played against them, they've never been like one of those teams like, sorry, Albania, but like Albania where you go, oh, this could be 6 or 7 this. You kind of look at it, and sometimes I think we beat them 5-1 last time we played them. But everyone kind of said, oh, it's a good result, that, because they're not a bad team. And I think if you look through their results, they're never bottom. They're not like a Liechtenstein or a San Marino, like far from it. They might not be the biggest of countries, but they produce some good players. So I think North Macedonia would not necessarily be a bad shout. The one thing I'm probably quite excited about with Holland, outside of Tim Krul coming on in the last minute to save penalties, and remember that Barini stuck one past him a couple of years ago at St. Hodgepodge Park. You look through their squad, they've got loads of good young players coming through. I think it's felt like maybe Holland have been in a situation where they've never quite been the Holland of old, in the sense that Italy have not got the same players that they used to, and the icons that they used to. They're still qualified for stuff. There's been points where the Dutch haven't, and I think it's a massive miss when Holland are not in a tournament. And I know fans are not going to be in as much, and I know it's going to be a bit different compared to usual, but I absolutely love seeing the Dutch when they're at a tournament, because it's just, everything's just orange. Such a good nation to have in a tournament that I'd like to see them do well, as long as it's not at the detriment of England, obviously. But there's a player in their squad that I think if anyone watches Champions League, which I kind of don't, I'm not a big Champions League fan, but I've watched 1 or 2 games, and I think it was when they played against Liverpool, I think it was. There's a lad at Ajax at the minute called Ryan Gravenberch. Excellent player, if you haven't seen him. And he's just one of many players that is in their squad that I think could probably turn it for them a little bit. I expect them to get out the group without a problem, to be completely honest, but I actually expect them to do a bit better than usual. There's players in there. Denzel Dumfries is a good player at PSV as well. Martin de Roon, who's had a decent season at Atlanta, who obviously used to be a Borough. Donny van de Beek, I know he hasn't done much for Man United, but he's a great player. So I think they're starting to look through his squad now, and I haven't even mentioned Delete, who's obviously at Juve. I think they're starting to build a squad now that's starting to turn into a side that's a bit more like Holland of old. So for me, the Dutch, without a problem, are getting through, and I'll be delighted to see them get through, because I love them being in the tournament as long as possible. And I feel like a bit of an affinity with them, because they always get beat on penalties, like late on in like the semis. So I feel a bit of an affinity with them as well. Outside of that, I'm going to go with Austria. I think Macedonia, I've talked them up a little bit, but for me, you look at Austria when they played against Scotland, and they weren't great, but they got a massive monster of a centre forward that's about 6'12" or something. He's massive, and I think that's a bit of a different weapon that probably wouldn't work against like Holland and other teams. But I think against Ukraine, it's someone to match the might of Ukraine. Ukraine have a few monsters at the back as well, but I think it'll be like a secret weapon, and Austria will just get through. I think they're more highly rated than they have been recently in previous tournaments, and they've got a bit of an easier group to get out of. So I'm going to go Holland to coast the group, and then Ukraine. But I also think Holland will go a bit further. But Connor, where you going? Is it Holland for you as well?
I definitely think Holland. I think they've got enough to get through the group stage, definitely. The only part of their squad that I think lets them down is the goalkeepers, because what I'm reading here, I've got 4-4-2 open, is their keepers that they're bringing are Tim Krul, Jasper Sillerson from Valencia, Martin Stecklenburg from Ajax,
Yeah.
I'm not sure who would be their number one out of that, but it doesn't really fill you full of.
I think it would be Clayson. I think I pronounced his name incorrectly, but I think that's who it would be. And he's never really convinced Dutch fans.
But when you have a look at the rest of the pitch, it's absolutely fantastic. You got like Van Aanholt. Shout out to Big Paddy Van Aanholt.
PVA.
Ake, Steven de Vrij, Wijndaal. But even up front though, like for all those Football Manager players, I know who Daniel Malin is from PSV, and he's an absolute machine on the game. But he is generally that in real life as well as Memphis Depay. So I think they've got a good enough squad that absolutely sail through as number one. And for number two, well, I think it's going to be Austria. I think they've just got more about them than Ukraine and North Macedonia. Some big names in their squad as well. They've got Marko Arnautovic still. I don't know how old he must be now. He must be a canny age.
I actually don't think he's that old. I think he just went to China very, very early. I'm sure he's like early 30s or something like that, but I could be wrong with that. Feel free to write in and tell me why I'm wrong.
Valentino Lazaro for those German fans, Borussia Mönchengladbach midfielder. Christopher Tremel from Union Berlin.
Yeah, Tremel's there, of course.
David Alba. They've got some good players there, so I think they'll go through second. Hipping Ukraine.
Yeah, I think, I mentioned before about Austria and I mentioned about their giant centre forward. That's a different option, but you make really good points there with the players that they've got as well. Arnautovic was one of my favourite players when he was at obviously West Ham.
He was superb. He carried them. He carried them when he was at West Ham.
He was class, wasn't he? Like he was a proper great at Stoke as well. Good. Great at Stoke, real character as well that you kind of want leading your line at a tournament, and they've also got that Munster alongside of him.
And I actually keep a close eye on Union Berlin, as you know, and Christopher Tremel's been an absolute unit for them this season.
Obviously, they've got into Europe as well, haven't they?
I was just about to say that, but I didn't want to rub Scott's face in it or your face, because I know you're big Hertha fans.
Yeah, I prefer the blue side of Berlin, obviously, which any Hertha fans do. Some of them do listen. We'll be pleased to hear. Ian, Holland, surely. I'm sorry to keep throwing this one at you, but there will be more competitive groups coming up. But surely Holland's they're winning that group by far.
Yeah, I can't really see sort of past them. And a relatively young side as well. I think they'll have the makings of actually sort of gelling in this their sort of tournament, and they're potentially doing sort of better than we think they might. Yeah,
I think so too.
Yeah, to be honest, and for second place, and I know these are cult sort of favourites on our podcast, but I can't. I am going to go for North, their sort of Macedonia, really, because actually every tournament really does. There is a surprise, their sort of package. It could well be them.
For what it's worth, if England and Scotland weren't in the tournament, I would 100% be following North Macedonia.
I think it came from because I said Alioski looked like a cockatiel.
Ah, yeah, of course. And of course, North Macedonia have Alioski. How do we even forget that? One of the Premier League's greatest characters. And Holland are going to win that group. I'd be very surprised if they don't. And then a mixture of Austria and North Macedonia. But like Scott said, you can't really discount Ukraine out of it either. I think they got the quarterfinals a few tournaments ago. Yeah, they haven't got Shevchenko anymore, which is kind of my extent of Ukrainian football. But they've always produced decent players in Ukraine. Rebrov being obviously not great for Spurs, but excellent when he was at Kiev. And obviously they've got a decent league with Kiev and stuff like that as well in terms of in contrast to maybe, no offense to the North Macedonian league and the Austrian league. But I think Ukraine have got a decent league there as well that have produced decent players over the years. So we can't discount them totally. But I think Holland far and wide. Where you could see with that, we're talking about how there's a third place teams are getting through. That might not be a bad shout for one of the best placed third teams, because there could be a team there that gets a win and a draw, whereas like another couple of teams get slightly more or a better goal difference or something like that, whereas Holland win all three and then they all beat each other. So that's where potentially you could get the best third place coming in. But moving away from the groups that are quite easily decided, we're now going to go into the best group, of course. Group Group D, England, Czech Republic, Croatia, Scotland. I'm very confident in England in this tournament. However, I wasn't particularly enamoured with the group, but I'll come to the Scotland fan first. Scott, England, Czech Republic, Croatia, Scotland. Take your Scotland hat off for a minute, and how tough is that group for Scotland?
Oh, I mean, it's under normal circumstances that it's probably a dream come true. England in a major tournament in the group stages. I've been to Wembley for qualifiers and the last qualifiers, and then for a couple of friendlies. But for that, it's a dream come true. Croatia and Czech Republic, both difficult ties. I said this to you guys off air. I do think that, again, under normal circumstances, if Hampden was full, I would be confident that we would be taking the points from both of those games. I'm looking at the records just now, actually, and we have played Croatia in competitive games 5. We've won 2 and drawn 3. We've never lost to Croatia.
Yeah, it's a weird set of results, that, considering that up until recently, Croatia being one of the better teams in the world for a good amount of years. How
good they were. And Czech Republic as well. We've played them 9 times. We've won 4, they've won 4, and we've drawn 1. Obviously, there was that game where we played them just in the qualifiers last year, where they had none of their first team players because they all refused to play because of COVID. But under normal circumstances, I would be saying that I'd be confident that we'd be finishing that group on 6 points. Given that it's not normal circumstances, I think we'll probably finish it on 9 points. I think we can win the 3 games because Wembley will not be full either. So Scotland first, Croatia second. I'll go for that. How does that sound?
Well, that's an interesting part. You mentioned about Wembley not being full. I don't think it's going to be, but apparently it is. But I don't see how. I genuinely don't see how. And obviously, the games at Hampden, you can see everything around where I live in the south side of Glasgow is getting ramped up for it. And I've been to see Scotland probably more than I've been to see England because of where I live, and I've lived next to Hampden for knocking on 6-7 years. And I was in the end when you played against Germany, and I literally went there just to see Thomas Müller. And I was like, oh, brilliant. I'll just go see him play because they just won the World Cup. And as it was, you put up a real good fight. It got me 3-2. And I mean, it was a far worse side than what you've got now. So I think sometimes the English people listen to that would be like, nah. But Hampden, when it's rocking, is a good stadium. And it really can roll you over the line. But as someone who went to the Sunderland game against Lincoln, 12,000 fans is nothing to be sniffed at. Still 12,000 fans that could. And to be fair, you beat Czech Republic without fans in November.
November, just before Christmas. I feel like, obviously, I say that, but looking at the group, then you're imagining that England will win the group, and then it's a straight fight for second between the other 3. There's not a team there. Hopefully, there's not a team there which are going to be Whitton boys, because hopefully that's not us. But I think we have a chance. We definitely have a chance of finishing, I would say, probably second. I think that the one thing that we're lacking, I know we're going to do the Scotland preview during the week, but the one thing that we're lacking is a James McFadden type player, because we have with so many good players in this squad this time. But I do think we've got Che Adams up front now where we've been lacking. But I think the thing that would stop us from really having a brilliant chance against, say, for example, against England at Wembley, is the likes of having a Faddy to pull something out like he did in France and he did against Holland or whatever. So I'll go for England to win the group and Scotland to qualify second.
Connor, just going to throw a question at you here out of nowhere. I think 3-4 years ago, if you faced Croatia in a knockout stage of a tournament, you would worry a little bit. And I know this is famous last words, but of course you can only base it on what we've seen. Croatia's best player is probably still Modric.
Yeah.
And I'm not discounting how great of a player he is and how he's nowhere near retirement, but he's not in his pomp. He's not what he was in terms of 3-4 years ago, where he can completely run a game. And obviously I think England have probably improved and added more players to it. So I think you're looking at that in normal circumstances. You see England is probably the best on their day, or Croatia. And then you look at Czech Republic and then Scotland. But I think anyone who's paid attention to it, which I think a lot of people have, as tough as a group as it is, it's maybe not as obvious as it used to be. But where do you see it going, and how do you see that group ending?
Going on exactly what was said about Gareth Bale, he's similar with Modric. He's not the same player he was like 4 or 5 years ago. He's still absolutely superb. And if Croatia stand any chance of going through, it'll have to come through Modric. And that's obviously not discounting what you just said, there were players around them. I don't want to sound big-headed, but Modric is Croatia, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Before I came on, I went through the groups and I just did my predictions. And this was without looking into the squads and what the squads were. And that actually had Croatia to finish first, with England second. But since we've been talking, I've been looking at all the squads and the fixtures. And I think England, originally I had Croatia to finish first and England to finish second. But looking at the fixtures now, I think England will come first. And the last game, the third one, is between Scotland and Croatia. And I think it's going to come down to that game of who qualifies second. And to be fair, look, I'm not just saying this because Scott's watching us with his glaring, beaming eyes. Scotland generally have a good squad. I do think they're lacking in a couple of places, but the left back, they've got quite good options at left back. Tyrini. I've lost the paper. Wait, no. They have got options
Taylor,
all across the pitch. Yeah. Even the keepers, Craig Gordon, David Marshall, John McLaughlin, Scott McKenna, Kieran Tyrini, Declan Gallagher.
Did you say Tyrini?
I did. How do you say it? Tierney.
Tierney. KT.
I'm not Scottish. No, they've got some good options there. Lyndon Dykes, who's been good for Queen's Park Rangers this year.
Yeah.
Che Adams. They have got some really good players there. Probably the best Scotland's looked in years, if I'm being quite honest. So I think it's going to come down to the third game, which is Croatia and Scotland, of who gets through.
I mean, you look through Croatia's squad as well, and I know we've paid a lot of focus towards Modric there because he's someone that can dictate a game to the middle. I mean, Barisic is obviously in Croatia's squad, and Barisic is he's the second highest chance creation maker in the Scottish Premiership. Obviously from left back, but I don't think, from what I've seen in Croatia, which is not every single game, let's be honest, it's impossible to watch every team in every game. But I've watched more of Croatia than some other teams, and Barisic is going to be hard for him in the way that Croatia play to impact the game the way that it does for Rangers, because Rangers play with Tav and Barisic just like banging down the wings. Basically, they're not even fullbacks, they're wingers, and they've got so much dominance. Barisic hasn't got that much freedom for Croatia, so a lot of it's going to come to the middle. On the flip side, my favourite sounding player plays for Croatia. He's their third choice goalkeeper, plays for Luton. Simon Slugger. I just think it's a great name. Like Slugger, good name.
I've just also realised their centre half is Dejan Lovren. So if you remember him at Liverpool, he was absolutely pissed. So
yeah, he wasn't great.
You're always going to have an option. They have got Ante Rebic from AC Milan.
Yeah, they do, and they've also got obviously they've got Kovacic from Chelsea as well.
Kovacic.
Brozovic.
So they have got options. It's just I think it's going to be tight, this group. I think England will win it unless something spectacularly goes wrong, or England will qualify. But I do think it's going to come down between Scotland and Croatia, and I think Scotland might just have enough to pip them. I think
you look at the Czech Republic squad as well, and I'm reluctant to discount any team that plays England or Scotland for that record. But I looked at Czech Republic's team, and if you go back in the day when they had like Nedved and Poborský, and they've always had a good 3 or 4 or 5 players. And the standout for me was probably Souček.
Yeah.
Which, no offense to Souček, but he's like the Fellaini of West Ham. When Moyes had him at Everton, he's kind of similar sort of play. He's very effective, but he's not a Nedved that's going to turn a game on a sixpence. So for me, the Czech Republic, the fact that they've lost twice to Scotland, and to be fair, they looked better when they had their stand-in players. For those of you who watched it, they were actually a better side with all these like 32, 33-year-olds that had barely ever played for the Czech Republic or 1 or 2 caps than they were sort of full squad. But I mean, I've set that up for England to get beat off the Czech Republic now, so well done, G. But I think for me, this is literally taken off my England/Scotland head. I think England should win the group and will. I think England have the tag of glorious losers, as do Scotland. Probably England more so in the latter stages for obvious reasons. But I think when you look at England's team, I mean, you just look at the right back options. We're arguing over should Kyle Walker just played in the Champions League final and won the Premier League, or should it be Reece James just won the Champions League, or should it be Trent Alexander-Arnold, who's got like a great end of the season? And I kind of agreed that he shouldn't be in the squad because I said no, he's not been the best right back out of the three. And however, he ended the season really, really well with Liverpool. And when you're arguing over who should play there, and then let's look at who's up top. Or should it be Grealish? Should it be Foden? Like, you've got players like Oxlade-Chamberlain that are not even near the squad. James Maddison that are not even near the squad. Players that can change a game, but like we're that strong. So if England don't do in England, we should not walk that group, because I don't think you can walk any group in a major tournament, but we should win it and we should go a lot further.
The only concern I have with England is, and I don't know how this is going to sound, I just don't really have much confidence in Southgate. I don't think he really knows what his first 11 is. It just seems like since the last tournament, we have rotated the squad a bit, which is fine because obviously it's all friendly fixtures and you need to see which system works, which players work better with other players. But I still don't think he knows what his starting 11 is.
I couldn't pick the starting 11, to be fair. I wouldn't be able to tell you England's, 4-1. Like, I don't know whether you'll play Declan Rice or Henderson. For me, it's an easy choice. It's Jordan Henderson. And I think one of the big criticisms he gets is that he sometimes plays 2 defensive midfielders, which I don't think he needs to when he's got the kind of attacking talent. So I hope, I like Southgate, but I hope that he lets the shackles off the team a little bit and just goes, you're better than all those 3 teams. Just go win the game comfortably. Set yourselves up for a good knockout stage. So I'm going England, Scotland, and that's me taking off my head. I honestly think I agree with Scott. I agree with Connor. I think Scotland have got a good squad. I think John McGinn is a really good player. Andy Robertson's world class. I think KT's on the verge of being world class. I think it's a bit weak when you look behind McGinn. I really don't rate Callum McGregor, but that's probably a really biased opinion. But I don't think he's come off a good season with Celtic either. And I think they're a bit weak at right back in terms of, I don't really rate Stephen O'Donnell at international level. And then you've got Nathan Patterson, who's obviously going to be great and is definitely the right option to take. But whether he's going to go into an international tournament after 5 games with Rangers, who knows? Hopefully he does, because I'd love to see him do well. But for me, a big talking point, we're going to be going on to the Scotland preview in full, so we'll go more in depth on this. But Ian, I want to throw this one at you before I get your predictions. I was amazed that Billy Gilmour was a surprise in the Scotland squad, because for me, Robertson and KT aside, he's the only player that has at least the potential to be world class. Would you put Billy Gilmour straight into the squad, straight into the starting 11?
Is it, well, you know what, maybe, bold. I mean, that would be a bold move. Clark's maybe not always known for that.
No.
No. But yeah, you're right. But then there's other players. I mean, I look at Ryan, the gold in Portugal, and I'm like,
that was
why is he not getting in?
He wasn't even close either, was he? It's not like he's even in the squad, which is But where are you going for the tournament? Not tournament, sorry, the group. Who do you think's coming out of that one?
Like sort of Connor said, if their Southgate they're bold, I can't see past their sort of England. I'm actually going their Scotland for the second place, because they're organised. There's a spirit there. They absolutely dragged themselves through their sort of qualifying. Hampden, it really doesn't matter if there's fans there or not because they made the most of it. So I really can't see past their sort of Scotland. It's obviously a tight knit squad. They really seem there to look out for each other, and I think that makes all of the difference. And actually, Clark, since he's come in, he's very much in the doer, Scotsman mold, but he's got something there about him. So yeah, I am going for Scotland.
Yes, Scott.
I hope Ian's right. I'm just browsing Twitter as we're doing this, and I'm just reading that apparently the Croatia and the Czech Republic football associations are going to ask for the games to be moved away from Hampden because of the COVID restrictions in Glasgow.
I heard about this. They've took their training camp away already.
One was at the Oriam in Edinburgh, and the other one at St Andrews, and they're going to ask to move to England or Wales. And apparently they're going to meet to discuss whether or not they should ask UEFA to move the games. So that would possibly, obviously, have a bit of a dynamic, as I said, with the groups and the fans and stuff like that.
Would you not say that? Would you not say that's more mind games though from them? Like, I know obviously I'm not discounting that COVID is quite rife in Glasgow at the minute. We know that with the Indian variant, but would you not say that's a bit of a mind game because they see us as a threat possibly?
I think so. That's exactly what I was looking at it there and going, they're seeing that if we can get this game moved to wherever, then we're not going to have. I mean, I think there was only something like, it was like less than 2,000 tickets available for the Scotland Supporters Club for the home games. So it went down to, I think it went down to 13 points. Obviously, I'm on 12, of course. But still there, there's still going to be, you would imagine that the majority of people who got tickets for Hampden through the original ballot will be Scotland fans as well, due to the lack of international travelling and stuff like that. So hopefully it is, and hopefully Hampden gets to stage the games and we can get that wee boost. But I think that would be a bit of a disaster for us if that was to happen.
I think it's probably too short a notice. But before we leave this group, I think it's the first one we've all agreed with. We've all gone England to top and Scotland second, which is obviously great news for the listeners because I imagine most of them are English or Scottish. I know it's a bit of a cliche to say the sort of thing. We've mentioned the Gaza moments quite a few times in Italia 90 and whatnot, and I'm very much sounding like an England commentator. But I'll come to you first, Scott, because obviously you're coming from a different viewpoint. But Phil Foden, is this his tournament if he wants it to be?
It depends if we play Declan Gallagher. If Decky's
I love
playing,
Deck, but
if Decky's playing, he's got no chance. And saying that, he might still be struggling, Decky, because I know he's still getting Mitrovic in his one back pocket, so he might struggle to carry Foden in the other one. But I watched the game last night, and Foden. I had seen Pep saying that Foden has got the most amount of talent that he's seen. That Messi is the best player that he's seen, but talent-wise and stage of career and age-wise, then I think it could be if he knuckles down and plays to his potential, then it could be a worry for us, especially as we said, we are sort of weak run about certain areas of the squad, and from a Scotland fan point of view, then he's definitely, I think he and Harry Kane are the ones to watch in the England squad for us.
If not, you've got Grealish still, and so it goes back to the central squad, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I was going to say Mason Mount because I'm not going to say he's underrated, but he's
not talked about as much, is he? Yeah, I know what you mean.
Simply because of Phil Foden and Grealish, how good they've been this year. But Mason Mount, he doesn't get enough recognition, in my opinion.
Potentially Chelsea's most important player, and they've just won the Champions League, so
yeah,
I know what you mean. I mean, I think people recognise him, but I think people get naturally excited by the Grealishes and the Fodens because of that sheer, unadulterated talent. But Mason Mount is probably one of the first names on the England team sheet.
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah, me too. Next group. Again, it's gone back to the previous. We've got, I sound like Gary Neville there, by the way. Spain, Poland, Sweden, Slovakia. It's got the obvious again. It's got the not so obvious, and then it's got the kind of wild card, like a lot of these groups have, to be fair. Scott, Spain, they're not the Spain they were 10, 15 years ago that just dominated world football, but they're still pretty tidy, aren't they?
For me, Spain were very much like Italy, and what I'd said earlier on about, collectively, yes, they have a good squad. Individually, yes, they have good players, but they're not, as you say, Graham, they're not the swashbuckling, fast attacking, just brilliant to watch team that they were when they sort of won the Euros and the World Cup in the last few sort of years as well. But I do think that they will win the group. I think they'll have enough to get them through. Second place, I'm not sure, Poland or Sweden, I think. But then when you look at Slovakia, when you've got two teams like that fighting for second, there's always a risk that they can cancel each other out. And all it takes is for Slovakia to get, like as we said earlier on, a win and a draw. And for Sweden and Poland to draw 2 games and Slovakia are through. But who do I think will finish second? I'm going to go for Poland. I think Spain to win the group and Poland to come second.
The Spanish squad's actually really interesting. I was looking through this, and there's a lot of players that you'd expect to be missing. Sergio Ramos isn't on the squad, which was that took me back a bit because I thought he would be like a shoe-in, but maybe he's. I mean, don't get me wrong, they've got Laporte, they've got Garcia from Man City as well, but the likes of like Diego Llorente's gone, lead centre back, ahead of him. It looks like Spain are trying to mould. They're trying to mould younger players coming through and get that new generation, but they've got a few players in there as well that have still got experience. Morata's in there, but like Adama Traore is in the squad, Ferran Torres, maybe players that we haven't seen so much on the major tournament at national level stage, mixed with the likes of like Azpilicueta. I don't think Spain are going to be as dominant as they used to be. I really don't see that, but I think they'll come out of the group without a problem. And after that, we've got... It pains me to go against Sweden because I love Seb Larsson, but I think Poland have got Lewandowski, and that makes such a difference. He's the best striker in the world, easily. Spain to win the group?
Yes.
Second, Poland, Sweden. Where are you going?
Poland. Second.
Because of Lewandowski?
Just because I think that Poland have good tournament experience.
Yeah.
Years before, you look at Poland and nobody ever really goes, Poland could do quite well. And then generally they do quite well, or they do all right. So I think they are quite a good tournament team. And I think that they just have 1 or 2 players that will give them the edge.
I know where we're going for you. Spain to win it?
I think it's the easiest group of them all. Spain to win it, Poland to finish second. But I want to give a special mention to Slovakia because I didn't even know he was still playing. And it's one for all the indie Italian fans. Marek Hamsik. Used to be midfielder general for Napoli a while back. He currently plays for Gothenburg, I believe, in Sweden, which is a very odd move. I'm just making sure. IFK Gothenburg.
Gothenburg, basically. Gothenburg, isn't it? Is the
you are the Swedish correspondent.
It's a lovely city. One of the favourite places to be in the whole world. Absolutely love Sweden.
But I can't disagree with what you were saying actually about Spain. It just does seem like they've hit the reset button. They want to bring all the youth through and develop, a bit like what England's done over the past few years, but obviously on a better scale. It's obviously develop all these into one team, and probably their objective was probably the World Cup in a couple of years' time. But exactly what Scott just said about Poland, when you look at their squad, it just seems like there's a lot of 100%ers in there, a lot of people that'll die for them. Piatek, Hertha Berlin, Lewandowski, superb, obviously. Klisch from Leeds United, Fabianski, Szczesny, there is a lot of good players in that squad. So yeah, I think they'll finish second.
But I cannot believe they didn't pick Dariusz Kubicki at right back. That's shocking, that. Dariusz Kubicki's the best Polish right back that ever lived. And he might be 45, 50, but I'd still stick him in. Ian, Spain.
Nope.
Poland?
No, Poland. You feed they're the GOAT and he will score. There for me, Lewandowski's going to be the top their scorer in the tournament.
He's the best striker in the world, I think, personally.
Yeah. Hard to disagree with that.
Yeah. Play to his their sort of strengths. I think they're going to do really, really well. Spain, I was looking through the squad there last night, and there's loads of names that we know, but there was no one who really stood out. And I thought, they're really on it just now.
It's not the Xavi, Iniesta kind of
no
Fernando Torres in his prime. It's not
like Torres.
It's not
Villa,
take, but
there's no one like that just now. I'm sure they will, come there good and do well, but no, it's Poland for me. So
who would you go second? Spain?
Yeah, Spain. Yeah,
yeah. I want Sweden to do something because I like Sweden a lot, but I don't know if they will because, of course, the big talking point from this, and I know that he's a bit more might, but Ibrahimovic is not in the squad. He's injured, obviously. He's out. I think that's probably going to scunner Sweden a little bit.
You know what? If I'm honest, if you're still relying on their sort of last, and we love Seb, but
he's 35, 36.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah,
I wonder if Toivonen got in the squad. Actually, that's a thought because obviously Oliver Toivonen was still getting in the Sweden squad for a long time, and I think he'd gone to play in Australia last time I checked. But
Toivonen, since he chopped his hair off, seems to be a totally different,
a bit better
player to the one that we had. So
the opposite of Samson. I think you made a really good point there when you said if you're relying on players that are really coming to the end of their career, not just their international career. And I think you look through Sweden's squad. Robin Olsen's the goalkeeper. He's number 2 at Everton. Lustig left Celtic like 3 years ago. He's still in the squad. Lindelof is actually the standout alongside Elander, and you've got Pontus Jansson as well. Outside of that, to be honest, I mean, your centre forwards that you've got is Marcus Berg's probably the big one. You've got Alexander Isak as well, who's at Sociedad, who's doing all right. But there's not a great deal of unadulterated quality that they've maybe had in the past with Sweden. And the quality that they do have is aging quality, and it's definitely not in its prime. So, yeah, I think it's hard to disagree. But I hope Sweden do well because that lovely country, lovely people, and obviously lovely Seb. But before we leave completely and make our final predictions, the most mental, toughest group ever. I absolutely feel horrible for Hungary because that must be awful coming out in that. But the final group, France, Portugal, the holders, of course. France, the runners-up, of course. Germany, serial winners of everything because Germany just like robots when it comes to tournaments. And then poor little Hungary. Scott, I'll come to you first. The first question I'll ask is, it's not going to be Hungary, is it?
Could be. No.
No.
I don't think so. No. This, other than obviously, I think probably most people will be the same, but other than the Scotland-England group, I think this is the group I'm most looking forward to. But also because I love Germany. I love everything German. And I'm a bit worried about it because I think Jogi Löw's, he's leaving after this tournament. So this is his last tournament. France are just like as I said earlier, the depth in their squad is just so good. Portugal, they never really strike me as they might win it, but again, they're a good tournament team. So I'm a bit concerned for Germany. I'm going to go purely based on being a German fan, France to win it and Germany to come second, which is harsh on Portugal, but if I wasn't a Germany fan, I would probably say different.
I think with Portugal, and I'm a big Ronaldo fan, big Ronaldo fan, but I think I don't think they're strong enough to be a team that will win 2 tournaments in a row. And obviously they won the last Euros. I think it's different to Spain. When Spain won a few before, they were like everyone's tournament favourites and then just went on and won it. That made sense. Portugal didn't go into the last one as tournament favourites. They won't go into this one as tournament favourites. And you quite often see teams that have won the previous tournament go out in the early stages. I think if they had a bit of an easier group, that wouldn't be the case. But I find it really hard to look past France and the Germans, especially with Germany in the last World Cup that they had when I think they got beat off South Korea and stuff like that. And I'm with you, Scott. I absolutely love everything German. It's like, it's a reason I've been 30 odd times to different parts of Germany, because it's class. And mainly it's because of the football and the beer and everything that's there. And much like I've said before with the Dutch, it's great to have them in a tournament. And I know the Dutch and the Germans hate each other, but the reason I like them is because they're so similar when it comes to their fan bases. They just absolutely die for their team, and I think it's great. For me, Germany don't win the group. France do. I think, Mbappe, you've got Griezmann. There's a lot of talent in that French squad, and I think France will go there or thereabouts to winning it. They always do. And I don't think they've got worse. I think, if anything, they probably just got better, where the Germans maybe have. I really do hope that Joachim Low doesn't scratch his balls and do a scratch and sniff this year. But I think Germany will qualify, but potentially Portugal would be the third team to qualify if we're doing the best third place, because I think they can probably sneak a draw out of France or Germany. They'll beat Hungary, or they should beat Hungary. And I think they might look at getting maybe the highest amount of goals and go through on like the goal difference side of things. And then I think once they get into the knockout stages, you've got Ronaldo, you've got a game-winning player there that could potentially take you further. So I'm certainly not discounting Portugal out of it. But for me, France to win the group, then Germany. Connor, where are you going with it?
I'm going with Germany to top the group, with France second. I think France have got an unbelievable amount of talent in the squad, as well as Germany. And that's obviously not discounting Portugal, but just like you've said, I don't think Portugal have the necessary depth to get through, simply because that group is absolutely deadly. And yeah, that's why I think Germany will top it.
Ian, where are we going with you for the group? Because it's, to be fair, if you'd said Portugal top, the only reason I'll laugh at you is if you say you think Hungary are going to do something. So this is an interesting group, isn't it?
No, I mean, like North, their sort of Macedonia will be the package. I'm sorry, Hungary, but you will be they're the whipping boys.
Hungary are going to be left starving, aren't they?
Yeah.
Oh God.
Starved of success.
I've gone for France there to win it.
Yeah,
Second,
same.
actually, they're Portugal. I just wonder if the Ronaldo's just got one last their sort of hurrah in him. He's maybe not had the best of seasons at the Juve by sort of his standards.
By his standards, yeah. He hasn't scored 50 goals, so I suppose.
But actually, Germany are going to finish third, but I think they'll get through as in that they're the two best sort of finishes. So there's just something about the Germany squad. I'm like, I don't think they're quite there yet either, and
They're still young. Yeah,
and I feel that actually Lowe needs to move on, and actually probably should have moved on sort of prior to this.
I found it quite interesting that, because for me, one of my favorite players in the world and one of my favorite people in the world is Thomas Müller. And naturally, I would watch England or Scotland 9 times out of 10. So I don't watch these teams every week. But I couldn't believe how long that Thomas Müller had been out of the Germany squad. Like, that actually took me back, that it had been that long. So that's all the groups looked at. We will do a quick sweepstake of player of the tournament, who we think will get the golden boot, although we've kind of touched on it. The surprise team of the tournament, and of course the winner. I'll go with you first, Scott. Who's your player of the tournament going to be?
Kylian Mbappe.
Any reason why?
I just think he's a cracking player. I just watch him and he just seems to get better and better every time I see him. He's just he makes it look so easy. And in that squad, I think they will help him. They'll just bring him out.
Frighteningly fast.
Mm-hmm.
Like worryingly fast.
Excellent player.
Connor, who's your player of the tournament?
I'm going to say Leroy Sané, because he went to Bayern Munich and he's just found himself again. And I think he'll be crucial if Germany are going to win.
Terrific player. Absolutely terrific player. Ian, who's your player of the tournament?
I'm actually I'm going to go for Kevin the Nisbet. I just think he's going to bang in a few goals and get himself a big money move afterwards. So I'm going
to say, how much are Hibs paying you to get 8 million instead of 3 million that they got off Birmingham in the summer? For me, player of the tournament, biased, but it feels like it's an Italian anti-Gaza moment. Phil Foden. I'm dead excited to see him, and I can't say up until the past few years I've really felt like that with English players. Him and Grealish, I'm so excited to see, and we're not even looking at the Sterlings and Kanes at the minute, and Mason Mounts that we touched on before. For me, Phil Foden, anything England do will come from Phil Foden just having an outstanding tournament, and I absolutely back him to do it. Golden Boot, Scott, we've touched on a bit, but quickly, who's your Golden Boot?
If he gets off and running in the group stages, I could see De Bruyne scoring a few.
Oh, a midfielder to take Golden Boot. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Connor, who are you going for?
I did originally say when we were discussing England, Harry Kane, but I think I'm going to retract that and say, because he's been absolutely crucial this year for Real Madrid, I'm going to say Benzema.
Yeah, because he's kind of sneaked in, hasn't he? The old experienced head sneaked in. Yeah, not a bad shout. Lukaku, for me, Lukaku, I think always got the shitty end of the stick at Man United when he's obviously a tremendous centre forward with speed, agility, confidence, pace, powerful, strong, and he's always in the right spot, and he can also score goals from a distance. So for me, Lukaku, because you'll find out why soon. Ian, who's your Golden Boot?
I can't see past the 11. Dusky. Yeah, I think he's gonna bang in at least 6 or 7. So yeah.
Yeah, I think if they get to the quarters, you've got a chance. I don't know if they'll make it past the quarters, but I think he could score enough in 4 or 5 games. He can score 5 goals in half an hour, can't he? So
yeah.
Scott, who's going to be surprise team or player of the tournament? You can choose a team or player.
I think I'll go for team, and I'm not just saying it because we're there, but I think Scotland might surprise a few folk. I think if we can get results against Croatia and the Czech Republic, and if we make it out of the group, then I think that would be a great return for us. Looking at the others, we're looking at the likes of Hungary, North Macedonia, etc. They might just be pushing it a wee bit for surprise, but I think Scotland could surprise a few if we can get a couple of results in there.
Connor, who's your surprise team or player?
I'm going to go for player, and I'm going to say Serge Gnabry, Bayern Munich, because obviously people just see Serge Gnabry as the one that was on loan to West Brom.
Your pronunciations have been amazing, by the way.
I'm honestly shit.
Gnabry.
So shit. I was learning German as well a couple of months back, and I was doing quite well with it.
To be fair, you might have it right. I might have it wrong, to be fair, because I haven't been learning German for a while.
But he's been doing well. He's been doing well at Bayern Munich. He hasn't been superb because obviously Lewandowski's in front of him, of course. But I think he's a good player, a really good player. And
terrific.
I think if he has a good tournament, his stock will be up.
I mean, he's for me, he's one of the best players in the world at the minute, and he's grown so much since he's left Arsenal and obviously West Brom on loan. For me, surprise of the tournament is going to be, and people are going to listen to this and think I'm biased because some people refer to me as the Scottish one. I'm English, but Scotland, I think they've got a better team than people. I think some people are thinking they're rubbish based on previous tournaments and stuff, but they've got a good enough team and they're in a group that they can get out of. And I think that'll be a surprise for a lot of people. So for me, Scotland, yeah. I don't think they'll surprise England. Don't think they'll get near us. But I think they'll surprise other people. Ian, who's your surprise team / or player?
Well, Well, I know we've mentioned that I am going to go for North Macedonia.
Yeah, yes. I hope so.
Yeah, why not? Someone always sort of pops up, and why should it not be them? And to be fair, especially after, Greece made them stick their North in their front of their name, which just isn't right, to be honest. So,
where's Greece in this tournament? Exactly. Previous winners, like which England aren't, or North Macedonia.
All joking aside, though, like I generally did have Scotland written off, because I always do, because I just think it's Scotland. They haven't really got very good players.
Most of Scotland normally do, to be fair.
And I did actually write them off until I actually had a look at the squad when we started the pod. And I actually generally think they will get through this year. They have got a good squad. So I know I said my surprise player, but I would generally say I've got high expectations for Scotland this year. Not high as in win it, but I would say if we get to the last 16, then they've done well.
Yeah,
personally,
better than they've ever done in it. One word answers before we go. Scott, who's going to win the tournament?
Belgium.
Connor?
Germany.
Ian?
France.
I've gone Belgium. Fair enough. Well, thanks very much for sticking with us as long as you have, everyone. I hope that has been a significantly good tournament from us who know nothing about football. We've tried our very, very best to give you our superior knowledge. But do like, subscribe, share it. England preview, got a Scotland preview. We'll have each Scotland and England game previewed as well, and reaction from it as well, which should be great. I'm looking forward to that, especially the England-Scotland game. So please subscribe, come back to us, listen to it, and we'll keep you company as best as we can and enjoy the tournament.